Here is a question that has no clean answer in Rivers State right now. Who is the APC? Not who leads the APC, not which faction is stronger, not which candidate is more popular. Literally, which organization registered with INEC has the legal authority to produce candidates for the 2027 elections in Rivers State under the APC banner? Because right now, as of today, June 29, 2026, there are two organizations both calling themselves the Rivers State chapter of the APC. One is backed by the APC national leadership in Abuja. The other is backed by two Rivers State court judgments and a court of appeal ruling. Both have chairmen, both have secretariats, both have candidate lists, and the candidates produced by one of them, including the governorship candidate, the National Assembly nominees, and the State Assembly aspirants, have been declared null and void by the other. Kingsley Chinda, Wike's preferred governorship candidate, emerged as the APC's sole governorship aspirant on May 21, 2026. He resigned as minority leader of the House of Representatives, announced his defection to the APC, and prepared to campaign. Less than 2 weeks later, a Rivers State court ruling declared his emergence null and void. And Wike's response, from a man who has run this political operation with surgical precision for 3 years, was to tell people to wait for the INEC list in July. That response is the most revealing thing Wike has said throughout this entire crisis. And by the end of this video, you will understand exactly why. Niger Brief is where the legal detail meets the political reality. Subscribe now and let's break down the crisis that the APC created for itself. The chairmanship dispute at the heart of the Rivers APC crisis did not begin in 2023. It began in 2024. Okocha-Beke was elected APC Rivers State chairman through a process the party's own constitution recognized. He served. In late 2023, the APC National Working Committee, under pressure from Wike-aligned National Party leadership, dissolved Beke's executive and replaced it with a caretaker committee, then engineered a congress on November 23rd and 30th, 2024, that produced Tony Okocha as the new substantive chairman. Beke refused to accept the dissolution and went to court. 2 Rivers State High Court judgments upheld his position. The first, suit PHC 3592/CS/2023, delivered by Justice S.H. Aprioku, set aside the dissolution of Beke's executive and affirmed that his leadership remained valid until October 2025. The second, suit PHC 3859/CS/2024, delivered by Justice Godswill Obomanu, went further and nullified the Okocha Congresses themselves, declaring they had no legal basis. The APC national leadership ignored both judgments. In August 2025, its national publicity spectre Felix Morka issued a statement declaring Okocha the chairman of the Rivers State chapter of our party and urging the public to disregard Beke's claims as false and misleading. The APC national chairman, Abdullahi Ganduje, personally inaugurated Okocha in Port Harcourt in December 2024, with remarkable confidence for a party whose own state chairman had been reinstated by a court. Okocha responded to the Obomanu ruling with what in retrospect was the most telling line of this entire crisis. He said, "I don't see the power of the court superior to the party." That sentence became the philosophical foundation of everything the Okocha-led Rivers APC did in 2025 and 2026. Every primary, every nomination, every candidate list. All of it rested on the premise that party authority outranked judicial authority. The Court of Appeal on May 29, 2026, answered that question definitively.
On May 29, 2026, Justice Elfrida Oluwayemishi Williams-Dawodu of the Court of Appeal, Port Harcourt Division, upheld the Rivers State High Court's nullification of the Okocha Congresses. She struck out the Okocha faction's appellate appeal as incompetent. That ruling did 3 things simultaneously. First, it confirmed what the High Court had found. The Congresses of November 23rd and 30th, 2024 that produced Tony Okocha as chairman were legally void. Second, it exhausted the Okocha faction's appellate options at the intermediate level. The next step would require a Supreme Court appeal, which takes time the 2027 election calendar does not provide. Third, it activated the Beke faction's legal claim to everything that followed, because if the Okocha executive was never legally constituted, then every act it performed in the name of the Rivers APC between December 20th, 2024 and May 29th, 2026 had no legal force. The Beke faction spokesman, Darlington Nwaju, stated this conclusion in terms that were both precise and sweeping. He said, and I quote the essential phrase, "All nominations, representations, communications, documentations, and decisions reached on behalf of the Rivers State APC within that period, including to the Rivers State Independent Electoral Commission for the August 2025 local government elections, including every governorship, National Assembly, and State Assembly primary, were illegal, null, void, and of no effect." That covers Chinda's governorship emergence. That covers the 28 weekend loyal assembly candidates cleared in the earlier reported screening. That covers the 20 LGA chairmanship seats the Okocha-aligned APC won in August 2025. All of it, according to the court-backed faction, falls within the void. The Beke faction called on the APC National Working Committee to immediately expunge all records linked to the disputed primaries. It called on RSIEC to retrieve certificates of return issued to LGA chairmen elected under Okocha's illegitimate authority and transfer them to the candidates nominated by the Beke executive. And it called on INEC at the federal level to refuse recognition of any candidate produced through the Okocha structure. Let us now be precise about the practical implications, because null and void is a legal phrase that requires translation. What it means for Kingsley Chinda specifically is this. Kingsley Chinda won the APC governorship primary on May 21, 2026 as the sole aspirant. His emergence was conducted under the Okocha executive. His membership of the APC, the registration through which he participated in the primary, was processed under the Okocha executive. His defection from the PDP was formally announced in the House of Representatives chamber by Speaker Tajuddin Abbas on June 2, 2026, 12 days after the primary. His defection letter was dated April 23rd, making him technically a defector before the primary began, but without the formal plenary announcement that the Supreme Court requires for a legislator's defection to be deemed valid. Legal practitioners under the umbrella of the Association of Legislative Drafting and Advocacy Practitioners, ALDRAP, filed a suit at the Federal High Court in Abuja, arguing that Chinda's defection was belated, that it violated Section 77.5 of the Electoral Act 2026 because he joined the APC after it had already submitted its register of members to INEC on May 10th, and that he registered with the Okocha faction, which by virtue of the May 29th Court of Appeal judgment was not the legally recognized APC in Rivers State. That is 3 separate legal vulnerabilities on a single candidate before the election has begun. Wike's response to all of this was revealing in its restraint. He did not engage the legal arguments. He did not dispute Okocha. He did not defend Okocha. He simply said, wait until INEC publishes its list of candidates in July. Those speaking before that list is published are engaging in speculation. That response is strategically intelligent. INEC's candidate list publication is the moment of practical truth, the point at which the Electoral Commission will have to make a determination about which Rivers APC structure it recognizes. INEC's determination historically follows whichever faction the party's national leadership has formally submitted as authentic, and the APC national leadership, despite the court rulings, continues to recognize Okocha.
If INEC publishes Chinda's name as the APC Rivers governorship candidate in July 2026, then Wike is right that the court rulings are, in practice, less determinative than the Electoral Commission's administrative process. If INEC refuses or is itself challenged by the Beke faction in the courts, then the July list becomes another battlefield. Here is the question. Drop it in the comments. Should INEC follow the courts or the party's national leadership in recognizing Rivers APC candidates? Your answer tells me what you believe about the rule of law in Nigeria.
To understand what a divided Rivers APC means for 2027, you have to understand that the division is not binary, Wike versus everyone else. There are 4 distinct blocks inside and adjacent to the Rivers APC, each with its own objectives and each capable of determining whether the party can produce a viable governorship candidate. Block 1. The Wike-Okocha Coalition. This is the operationally dominant bloc. It controls the Okocha executive, 22 of 23 LGA chairmen, the Amaiwele-led State Assembly, and the National APC's recognition. Its candidate is Chinda. Its strategy is to hold the INEC registration and wait out the legal challenges. Its vulnerability is the court rulings and the fact that every legal challenge it faces has so far been decided against it at the trial and intermediate appellate levels. Block 2. The Beke-Cole alignment. Tonye Cole, twice the APC governorship candidate, self-described APC leader in Rivers after Amaichi's departure, is aligned with the Beke faction, the court-recognized Rivers APC structure. Cole argued in April 2026 that Fubara joined through the wrong door by registering with the Okocha faction, and that the Beke executive was the only entity with legal standing to welcome him. Cole has indicated he wants the governorship. His Beke faction's court victory gives him a legal argument. What he lacks is the political machine and grassroots infrastructure to match it. His Sahara Group business profile and technocratic appeal reach professionals and middle-class Rivers voters, a narrow but real constituency. Block 3. The Fubara NDC possibility. Fubara has not confirmed he will contest the 2027 governorship under any platform, but the evidence is accumulating. A relative, Blessing Fubara, has obtained an NDC governorship nomination form. The Governor's Assembly allies, including former Speaker Victor Oko-Jumbo, contested and reportedly survived APC primaries for State Assembly seats. His House of Representatives ally, Awaji Abiante, remained active, and the NDC, now carrying Peter Obi's presidential bid, offers a platform that would allow Fubara to contest without re-entering the APC minefield. If Fubara runs on the NDC and Obi runs on president on the same ticket, the Rivers governorship race opens up in ways none of the current APC calculations account for. Block 4. The Amaichi ADC legacy. Former governor and former minister Rotimi Amaichi formally left the APC to the African Democratic Congress in 2025. Some of his loyalties followed. Tonye Cole, though still in the APC, bridges the Amaichi network. This bloc is smaller than the others but remains relevant in specific LGAs, particularly in the Southeast Senatorial District, and its candidates' choices in 2027 could affect margins in a close 3-way or 4-way race. The most dangerous configuration for the APC, the scenario that could, for the second time in Rivers history, result in the party failing to field a recognized governorship candidate, is a combination of INEC refusing Chinda's candidacy on legal grounds and the Beke faction's inability to conduct new primaries within the remaining timeline. The APC went into the 2019 governorship election without a recognized candidate for exactly this reason. A court ruling nullified its primaries and the timeline left no space to restart. That precedent is not hypothetical. It happened, and the legal situation in 2026 carries structural echoes of 2019. INEC's candidate list publication in July 2026 is the next inflection point, but it is not the last one. Under Nigeria's electoral law framework, once INEC publishes a list of candidates, parties have a short window, typically 21 days, to make substitutions. This is the window Wike is pointing at when he says to wait for July. If Chinda's name appears on the list, the Okocha faction's position is strengthened. If it does not, or if it appears with a legal challenge flag, the IAPC national leadership will be forced to make a decision about which Rivers APC executive it officially recognizes for the purposes of the 2027 candidate submission. That decision cannot be made without INEC's involvement, and INEC, under its current leadership, has been cautious about picking sides in internal party disputes, preferring to defer to the last court order or the party's national structure, whichever provides the cleaner administrative path. The campaign timeline adds another dimension. INEC announced that campaigns for governorship and state assembly elections will commence on September 9, 2026. That gives any candidate with a disputed legal status approximately 10 weeks from the July list publication to resolve their situation through the courts before campaign season begins. 10 weeks for a legal dispute that has already consumed 18 months of litigation is not a lot of time.
The 2019 comparison is worth restating. In that election, the Rivers APC was removed from the ballot after a High Court nullified its primaries, and the Court of Appeal's reversal came too late for the party to mount an effective campaign. The APC did not run in 2019. Wike won unopposed against meaningful opposition. If the same legal sequence plays out in 2027, if INEC declines Chinda, if new primaries cannot be conducted in time, and if the Beke faction's candidate list is submitted too late to build a real campaign, the APC in Rivers State will enter the 2027 governorship election with a legally contested or absent candidate facing a Fubara NIMDC ticket aligned with Obi's presidential momentum, with Toye Cole drawing from the middle class and professional vote, and with the Amechi network providing a nuisance factor in critical LGAs. That is not a scenario where the Wike camp wins. The Rivers APC's identity crisis is, at its core, a crisis of a party that tried to use its own internal processes as political weapons, and in doing so, left itself legally exposed to the very mechanisms it deployed. The Okocha Congresses were conducted in defiance of a subsisting court order. That defiance, which seemed like strength in December 2024, has become the legal vulnerability that the Beke faction is now exploiting in 2026. The 28 assembly candidate screenings, the LGA elections, the governorship primary, all of it conducted under an executive whose authority two courts have now declined to recognize. Wike is right that INEC's July list is the next decisive moment, but the INEC list will not resolve the legal dispute. It will only determine who is on the ballot while the dispute continues through the courts. And in Nigerian electoral history, contested candidacies that reach the ballot while under active litigation tend to produce results that are then challenged, adding another layer of post-election tribunal risk to a party that already has too many open legal files. The question for Rivers APC is not whether it is divided, it is. The question is whether the division is manageable, or whether it has crossed the threshold at which a party becomes an obstacle to its own electoral objectives. That threshold may already have been crossed, and the people waiting to find out are not in Abuja. They are in Port Harcourt, in Degema, in Ogoni, in Asari Toru, waiting to see if the party that claims it will govern them in 2027 can first decide who it actually is. Share this video with anyone trying to understand why the Rivers APC candidacy story is more complicated than it looks. Like, subscribe, and I will see you